age. At the ancient site of Pumapunku, for example, we still see evidence of advanced building techniques that seem to have been very accurate and very deliberate in design.
Cheap psychological trickery and pseudoscience, or just gross incompetence.
And the purpose as to what it could have been for. Just like we see with other ancient sites across the globe, we grow up believing the far-fetched stories that were basically made up by the first people to reach these sites. But if you consider that the civilizations that popped up around these places were already saying that the ancient sites existed before they arrived at the locations, then you must consider that history is much older than we are led to believe, and the lost civilizations would have been devastated by the great floods as foretold by every civilization from around the world. At Pumapunku, there's evidence of a cataclysmic event in the form of scattering of giant stones distributed all over the place. This would have taken a very strong force of nature to affect this area in such a devastating way. The excavations at Pumapunku are only at the 2 feet deep mark, and the deeper they dig, the more they are bound to find. Incredibly, there has been ground-penetrating radar carried out at this site that reveals that under the ground there are in fact a series of massive chambers that the so-called archaeologists are turning a blind eye to. What's that all about? Wait till you see this.
Stop it, please, I beg you!
Incredibly, there has been ground-penetrating radar carried out at this site that reveals that under the ground there are in fact a series of massive chambers that the so-called archaeologists are turning a blind eye to. What's that all about? Wait till you see this.
In case you didn't get that the first time, let's look at that again and consider the images shown on screen. Incredibly, there has been ground-penetrating radar carried out that reveals that under the ground there are in fact a series of massive chambers that the so-called archaeologists are turning a blind eye to. What's that all about? Well, what's it about? He's literally showing the work done by so-called archaeologists that they're turning a blind eye to. What's that all about? What's actually happening is a devious and, well, a deceptive tactic which runs through the Lost History channel consistently. These very tricky, cheap psychological tricks. But what he's muddying the waters, he's poisoning the well, every dirty tactic, marketing trick in the book. The so-called archaeologists are covering up the very same research they conducted and published. They initiated it. They went to the trouble of getting permission. They went to the trouble of arranging funding. They got their hands dirty. They traveled. They went through all the work. And yet this guy, this truth seeker, would have you believe that they're turning a blind eye to the very same bloody research that they published and initiated. And yet here he is citing that research and then calling them so-called archaeologists and accusing them of turning a blind eye to the very bloody thing that they did. This is gutter tactics. This is shameful, dirty gutter tactics. The so-called Chris Yeager of the so-called University of Wisconsin has allegedly published on this supposed research on a so-called archaeological website linked below. Since the best way of suppressing the truth from truth seekers is to do the work without them asking or contributing to it, and then making it available to the general public so that it won't even be cited by the truth seeker accusing him of willfully ignoring his own work, turning a blind eye to his own work. What is this? This is a common tactic used by cult leaders and propagandists. It's let's have a look. Who said it the best? Accuse the other side of that which you are guilty. Propaganda Minister Joseph Goebbels. This is also used by cult leaders and tricksters and con men and marketers to deceive and to make you believe that they are the righteous ones when they are in fact the ones guilty of the very thing that they accuse others of doing. These types of tropes, such as so-called archaeologists turning a blind eye, are the stock in trade for these channels, websites and authors. even after a full bottle of willing suspension of disbelief, I cannot accept that this is the result of perpetual incompetence. It is intentional. No one can be so clever in their slick productions and wordplay whilst also being so utterly incompetent or stupid enough to believe that what they are writing down in their script is anywhere close to the truth. Make no mistake about this, these cheap psychological tricks are part of their business model, and they are ripped directly from the handbook of cult leaders and propagandists since the beginning of time. They also wrap themselves in a cloak of self-declared truth seeker, fighting the wicked monolithic establishment of evil which would trick you and suppress information and keep you down. But it is a pattern that is continually repeated. It is the deliberate perversion of truth to conceal the truth that threatens the bottom line of these so-called truth seekers and their industry. They'll word it in different ways, but the basic premise is we are the angels and they are the demons who are concealing or ignoring the truth. This is basically the stock in trade, basic standard operating procedure of every cult leader, propagandists, and snake oil merchant since the beginning of time. And it is shameful that they keep saying this. Let's go further because it's terrible.
Wait till you see this. In this footage, we can clearly see wild variations that the compass is reacting to something. What's going on with this, you have to wonder. The compass seems to only react across the stone and not react vertically. Wait till you see this. In this footage, we can clearly see wild variations that the compass is reacting to something. What's going on with this, you have to wonder. The compass seems to only react across the stone and not react vertically. At the famous H blocks, watch what happens when the compass is placed at the cut out center of the H block. That is a variation of 180 degrees at least. Is that not just crazy or what? As we move the compass across the surface of the block, you clearly notice that it points to the middle of the block. The complexity of the cutting of the stones here at Pumapunku is astonishing. What type of structure was this place meant to be?
Is he alone in this rubbish? Actually not. He's just a carbon copy clone of Take a Guess. Anyway, so in the video itself, I won't put this one up because it wasn't a Creative Commons reuse allowed. But who do we see here? Firstly, he's, to quote him, pointing with his hand, as you can see, this is true north. Now, he's using a magnetic compass, pointing to true north, indicating true north, and using a magnetic compass to do that. Number one, not a biggie, but part of a bigger pattern of bogusness. So then he gets down behind next to one of these stones, Pumapunku, places a magnetic compass inside those holes on the stone, and he finds andesite inside the holes of andesite, and he finds that the needle of the magnetic compass no longer points to magnetic north, which is different from true north. For a short distance, not so much, but if you're navigating and you're not using true and magnetic north, you're going to be off by a considerable distance if you travel a reasonable distance. So again, there is a big difference if you're navigating between true and magnetic north. Not a biggie for a short distance or just a random indication, but keep that in mind. It is an important thing if you are navigating. If you're lost and you need your compass, true north is not magnetic north. But places a magnetic compass in those holes inside the andesite, and the needles change in direction. It's also worth pointing out that Ancient Aliens is produced by Prometheus Entertainment, which produce such high quality television as The Girls Next Door, but Prometheus Entertainment is no backyard operation. It is a multi-million-dollar enterprise which has a production team, budget, and a research department amongst its staff. Now, they themselves include Ancient Aliens amongst their non-fiction series. Ancient Aliens, it's a top rating show in the US, and it's also shown worldwide, including here in Australia on the SBS Viceland channel, which is 80% government government funded. So Australian tax dollars are going to this trash and other Prometheus entertainment productions as well. Just saying, but money well spent, SBS. This is how you get your budget destroyed, and your already suffering reputation is just going down the gurgler faster than you can believe by putting these Prometheus entertainment shows on a majority government funded station. It's crazy, it's ridiculous. But this is what he says. They have a budget. This is again a slick production team with a multi-million-dollar industry, research staff, legal staff, everything that would go into it. So they have no excuse for not doing basic research. I think pointing out magnetic north is only a small issue, but this is that's a very small point. Let's go further. Magnetic compass in andesite not pointing to magnetic north. Wow. Apart from selling misinformation in regards to the capabilities of ancient Egyptians and stoneworking, you'll also find Brian Foster to be a big name in selling misinformation in regards to what can be achieved with primitive, simple tools and techniques in South America as well. Lost ancient technology of Peru and Bolivia, lost ancient technology of Egypt, lost ancient high technology here, lost ancient high technology there. Everywhere, lost ancient high technology. Never one to shy away from selling cattle excrement, has a delicacy of sorts. You'll find Brian Foster's also engaging in profiteering from this magnetic anomalies, magnetic mystery, magnetic Pumapunku mystery anomalies can't be explained, therefore lost ancient high technology / extraterrestrials. Recently released the Snake Oil album. Brian Foster's greatest hits include "It's impossible to drill holes in granite without anything less than diamond technology." "You cannot cut andesite with copper. The Romans couldn't work granite. The Romans didn't have lathe technology for the granite columns at Baalbek. The Romans couldn't lift the column drums at Baalbek." And also, "The construction of Pumapunku is the best evidence for extraterrestrials," and many more. This is what he sells. Repeat over and over again, and God forbid anyone, politely try and point this out. So, this is what it's come to. It is mock worthy, and it needs to be mocked, and it shall be mocked, and it is snake oil. It's precisely what it is. Magnetic anomalies. So why is this such snake oil? I can, just like them, I can point and say things without any evidence. But what is the evidence? Not just for. Well, let's look at that right now. Mysterious, enigmatic, magnetic mystery of Pumapunku. These blocks and most of those at Pumapunku are made from andesite. They're always telling us about andesite, the properties of andesite, the hardness of andesite, the impossibility of working andesite without advanced, lost high technology. They love to say andesite because it makes them sound as if they know something about stones such as andesite, gives the impression they are authoritative sources on andesite and have done their homework on andesite. So for all the time spent travelling, moving around, filming at Pumapunku, all the time and energy spent editing, putting these videos together, no one thought to Google magnetism and andesite, the stone that they, andesite, magnetism. So literally first search term, andesite magnetism, and the first page results will deliver all sorts of material in regards to this mysterious anomaly. Basaltic andesite, volcanic rock, various minerals, mixtures in there, but again, experts on andesite, you certainly can't cut copper with andesite, andesite's hardness, you can't work it with this. Well, of course that's all rubbish, but what's going on here? So they pretend to be experts on andesite, telling you what you cannot do with the stone that can be worked in those ways. And so basaltic andesite. It's in Central America and the Andes in South America. Andesite. That's where the name comes from. Basaltic andesite, in the general family of basalt. Now, what's important about all these stones? The way that they're formed. So it's magma. So when the lava comes above ground and is cooled above ground, that's how this family of stones are formed. They are naturally magnetic, and magnetic fields interfere with magnetic compasses. Imagine my shock and horror when I had to spend hours and hours researching this. Magnetic stones have a magnetic field which interfere with magnetic compasses. Magnetic basalt by the YouTube channel The Fire Life. You take a magnet, you put it next to basalt, which includes basaltic andesite. It is a magnetic stone. So, shock, horror, what happens when you put a magnet next to a magnetic compass? Permanent magnet effect on a compass by the YouTube channel Bunting Berkhamsted. Oh Lord, we put a magnet next to a magnetic compass and it interferes and creates a mysterious anomaly. So the mysterious magnetic anomaly of Pumapunku is about as mysterious as putting a magnet next to a magnetic compass. It's no mysterious anomaly at all. The only anomaly is the complete lack of research or deliberate deceptiveness by this particular crowd of YouTubers.
Activity at play here are anomalous, to say the least. What was the purpose of the H-blocks, and what exactly was Pumapunku when it was a functional site? The tight-fitting blocks with no binding mortar would be some achievement today, never mind thousands of years ago. At the famous H-blocks, watch what happens when the compass is placed at the cut-out center of the H-block. That is a variation of 180 degrees at least. Is that not just crazy or what? As we move the compass across the surface of the block, you clearly notice that it points to the middle of the block. The complexity of the cutting of the stones here at Pumapunku is astonishing. Wow. What type of structure was this place meant to be?
It's time to stop! It's time to stop, okay? No more!